We pull the threads of research, stack up the source material, and give you the essential takeaways.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're taking a bit of a two-pronged approach. We're looking at financial wisdom, specifically the core ideas like assets versus liabilities.
Right, the real basics.
Exactly. But then we're immediately pivoting to analyze how these ideas get packaged. You know, the rhetorical tricks the self-improvement genre uses to make things stick.
And we're using Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad as kind of a lens for that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's had such a huge impact.
Precisely. So the mission is simple. Unpack that fundamental financial stuff and then look at the linguistic side, the persuasion mechanics that get people motivated for, well, real change.
Yeah, and it's a really needed conversation because, I mean, for ages, the default advice has been so linear, hasn't it? Be a good student.
Get good grades.
Secure that good job.
Yeah.
And the sources we looked at, they don't say that's totally useless advice, but
it's clear that for millions, that path just isn't cutting it anymore. It's not leading to financial stability.
not reliably, no.
And I think that's why Kiyosaki's message hits home for so many. It taps into this massive, almost systemic financial literacy problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's set the scene with that context, because the sources really paint a stark picture of what happens when that traditional way fails.
The data really is quite stark. There was this big international survey, OECD-INFE.
Right, I saw that.
And it found that even in highly developed places like the EU, roughly half the adult population doesn't really have a solid grasp on basic financial concepts.
Half. Wow.
Yeah. And this isn't just abstract, it translates directly into these awful debt cycles.
The source material we had really hammered this home using data focused on Indonesia, and it's the ratios that are just eye-watering. Tell us about that average borrower situation.
Okay, so picture an economy where you've got like 4 million active job seekers annually.
Lots of competition.
Yeah, but the average monthly income back in 2022 was pretty low, around IDR 2.17 million. Now here's the kicker. The average loan value per person,
Uh-oh.
IDR 2.31 million. That's 106% more than the average monthly income.
Wait, 106% more? So you're instantly underwater the moment you take the loan.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You borrow more than you make in a month on average. That's not borrowing for growth. That's borrowing to survive, maybe.
Or just maintain. And you can see how that spirals, especially for younger people. The sources mentioned the 17 to 34 age group.
Yeah, they saw a 5.3% jump
Yeah.
in what they call non-performing loan borrowers. Basically, people defaulting for over 30 days. It shows the strain.
And that strain, that desperation, it fuels another trend you found, right? Consumptive loans.
Exactly. People aren't just borrowing for, say, starting a business or education. They're borrowing for consumption, just daily living, maybe.
Things that don't generate income.
Right. The data showed that in 2023, online loans for consumptive stuff averaged over 62% of the total distribution. That's a big jump from 51% the year before and like 48% the year before that.
So the trend is accelerating. People are acquiring more and more things that just take money out of their pockets.
Which is, the classic definition of a liability. The system seems almost geared towards it sometimes.
Yeah, it does feel that way. And this debt burden, it's happening against a backdrop of really shocking wealth inequality. We found some 2018 data from Credit Suisse.
Ah, yes, the Global Wealth Report.
In Indonesia, the richest 1%. Just 1%, controlled almost half the wealth, 46.6%.
And if you broaden that out to the richest 10%,
it jumps to 75.3%, 3/4 of the wealth held by just a tenth of the people.
It's useful to have context for that too. That level of inequality put Indonesia third highest in Asia at the time, behind Thailand and India.
And compare that to somewhere like Japan.
Totally different picture. In Japan, the top 1% controlled only about 18% of the wealth.
So yeah, the data really confirms this tension. Just telling people, work harder, save more.
It's not enough. Not when the system itself seems so skewed.
Exactly. So if that old playbook is failing people, leading them into debt, you need a different approach. A new operating manual, maybe?
Which brings us perfectly to Kiyosaki's big idea, the thing he's most famous for. Boiling down financial reality to assets versus liabilities.
Yeah, this is really the core of his philosophy, isn't it? And he offers definitions that are, they're designed for action, for changing behavior, not necessarily for passing an accounting exam.
Right, practical.
He puts it bluntly, rich people acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets.
That's the ficus quote. So what's the simple takeaway, the memorable bit?
It's all about cash flow. Pure and simple. An asset is, in his words, something that puts money in my pocket.
So it generates income or maybe saves you money somehow. Right. Reduces expenses, improves sales, brings cash in. And a liability is the opposite. Something that takes money out of my pocket.
Like a debt or an obligation you have to pay regularly, car payments, rent.
Credit card bills, mortgages on your primary residence, anything that drains cash out. The key difference is just generating income versus reducing income. Money in, money out.
That reframing feels, well, it can feel quite radical when you first hear it, especially applied to everyday things. Because we're taught, your house, your car, these are assets, signs you're doing well.
And Kiyosaki just cuts right through that. He says, look, if you buy a car with a loan, you've got payments, insurance, gas. That car is taking money out of your pocket every month.
So it's a liability, even if you meet it.
From a pure cash flow perspective, according to this definition, yes. It's a liability until it's maybe paid off and somehow generating income, which cars rarely do.
Okay, what about the big one? The house. Most people see their home as their biggest asset, their primary investment.
Again, he's absolutely ruthless about cash flow. If your house has a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, upkeep costs.
Which most primary residences do.
Right, and you're not generating income from it, like renting out rooms or something, then it's actively reducing your net monthly income. It's taking money out.
So by his definition, it's a liability, at least until it's paid off and maybe generating equity you could tap.
Exactly, or generating rent. But until then, purely based on cash flow, it's cash out. It's a liability. The definition is deliberately, brutally simple.
Cash in versus cash out. It's powerful. But, having a good idea isn't always enough to make it catch on. Billions of words get written about finance.
Most disappear without a trace.
Yeah, but the self-help genre seems to have this unique ability to penetrate the mainstream. So let's shift gears now. How do these books actually deliver these ideas in a way that makes people act?
This is where the linguistic analysis gets really interesting. We're looking at the rhetorical strategy. How is it designed to motivate you, the listener, the reader? Researchers found the genre has this incredibly strong reader-oriented character. Meaning the most common personal pronoun used is you. And critically, it's usually in the subject position, the person doing the action in the sentence. About 82% of the time, apparently.
82%. Wow. So the language itself is constantly casting the reader as the main character, the active protagonist making things happen.
Precisely. It constructs you as the sole active agent, the one who's responsible for improving your life.
Yeah.
Which, fits the name perfectly. Self-improvement. You're the one doing the improving.
Right. You can't just passively receive it. And if you are the main agent, the way the advice is delivered, well, it can't sound like a command from on high, can it?
No, it has to feel empowering, not authoritarian. The style is really carefully tuned. Authors definitely use directness, those imperative lists like do these 10 things for clear, concise advice.
Get to the point.
Yeah. But they also use what linguists call modality to kind of soften the tone.
Modality, like possibility versus obligation.
Exactly that. The analysis shows they lean heavily towards possibility. They're not typically using language like, you must do this, or you should adopt this strategy.
It's more like,
you may find this helpful, or applying this can lead to X, or this could work for you. It frames things as options, as potential outcomes you can choose.
So that's the soft sell. It creates more of an equal relationship, maybe, like a mentor or even a peer suggesting something, not a drill sergeant barking orders.
That's the idea. It lets you feel like you're discovering the solution or choosing the path. Rather than just being told what to do, it lowers resistance.
Makes sense. And how else do they keep you engaged?
Well, questions are huge. They pop up a lot, maybe 35 times per 10,000 words. And they're not just asking for information.
They're doing something else.
Yeah, they're used to make you reflect, maybe nod along in agreement, or to cleverly introduce the author's next point, making you feel like you're part of the thought process.
Okay, and what about those little nuggets that you remember long after? The sticky ideas.
Right. That's where aphorisms and stories come in. Aphorisms are those short, punchy statements that capture a core message. Like, the assets put money in your pocket line.
Easy to remember, easy to repeat.
Exactly. Portable wisdom, like that reader mentioned in the source, sticking a quote on their fridge. And then you have the stories, the exempla.
The examples.
Right. They're central, usually structured like, here was the problem, here's how it was solved, here's the transformation. They illustrate the point and show that change is possible because, look, someone else did it. Often the author themselves.
And that personal story, that transformation, that ties into how they build credibility, doesn't it? It's not about PhDs.
Correct. It's a different kind of credibility.
Yeah.
They build trust, often not by positioning themselves as academic experts, but as, quote, average people who went through a self-transformation.
Relatability.
Yeah, they share their own struggles and breakthroughs. It creates this peer-to-peer connection. I was like you, I figured this out, and now I'm sharing it. For many readers, that kind of lay knowledge or lived experience builds way more trust than a list of credentials.
Okay, this has been a really thorough deep dive. We started with some pretty grim realities, the wealth gaps, the debt stats.
Yeah, the concrete evidence for why that old financial advice just isn't landing for so many people.
And we dug into that simple but powerful counter-idea, Kiyosaki's asset versus liability framework, focusing relentlessly on cash flow, money in versus money out.
The core financial takeaway.
But the really fascinating layer, I think, is the delivery mechanism. How self-help constructs you, the reader, as the one in charge, using language that suggests possibility, not demands obligation.
And building trust through those relatable stories and aphorisms.
Yeah, the whole genre is basically built on this core message of empowerment. You can change your life.
That's the fundamental promise, isn't it?
It is. But if these authors are using such clever rhetorical tools, framing advice as possibilities, emphasizing your responsibility, it leaves you, the listener, with a pretty big question, doesn't it?
Which is?
What responsibility do you have to critically evaluate all this, to decide which peer you should actually trust, and which tools really make sense for your own unique, complex financial situation?
That's a really important point, choosing your guides wisely.
Definitely something to chew on next time you pick up one of these books, or even think about your next purchase.